This summer, Jupiter is going to be entering Cancer, and it's going to be there from June of 2025 until June of 2026. And this is arguably the best transit of this year. There is so much to look forward to. There are so many good things about it. And in this video, I want to tell you exactly what Jupiter is all about, what Jupiter in Cancer means, why it's good, how to take advantage of it, and how do you get the most out of it as well. At the end, I'm going to be going over exactly how it's going to be affecting your rising sign. Because Jupiter enters a new zodiac sign every year, I always make a video about Jupiter going into the new zodiac sign that it's going to be in for that year. But this video is a little bit extra special because of what has been going on in the Gemini and Cancer area of the Zodiac for a while. And Jupiter is about to change a lot of things that have happened in the past, and they're going to make things that were probably pretty bad really, really good over this next year. So there's a lot to talk about. Let's just get right into it. If you don't know me already, my name is Cam Wyatt, professional astrologer, and my job is to tell you what is going on in the astrology and let you know how it's going to be affecting you, how to make the most out of it, and especially with this video, how to enjoy it. And let me just start off by covering the basic timeline of this Jupiter in Cancer transit. Jupiter enters Cancer on June 9th of 2025, where it will be until June 30th of 2026. But once it enters Cancer on June 9th, it will be direct, and then it will station retrograde on November 11th of 2025. It will then retrogress backwards. It will station direct at 15 degrees Cancer, which is its most exalted degree. It's Jupiter's best degree to be at on March 10th of 2026. So again, it's literally a full 12 months of Jupiter in Cancer. And why this is such a good transit is because Jupiter rules pretty much all of the good things. In astrology, Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. Benefic meaning good, and there are two benefic planets, that is Venus and Jupiter. Venus is the lesser benefic, which doesn't mean she's, any bad or any worse, but Jupiter is the greater benefic. It operates on a greater plane. And some of the key themes and the key words that Jupiter rules over is things like abundance. It rules faith. It rules luckiness. You've probably heard other astrologers talking about, oh, this zodiac sign is going to have a lucky day because Jupiter's conjoining their sun or something like that. Jupiter rules excess. It rules abundance. It rules things like fertility. It rules things like gifts. It rules wisdom. Jupiter rules over reward and opportunities. And on another note, Jupiter rules justice too. Jupiter is ideological in nature, meaning it's looking for the best. It's hoping for more. It's looking to be in excess. It's looking to live in abundance. And something I've talked a lot about, especially if you're a member over on my website where I teach astrology for you guys in one of the best and most affordable ways. If you're interested in taking your astrology education even farther, go ahead and check out my website where you're going to get access to all of my lectures on the Zodiac, the planets, and I post a new lecture once a week on a new topic about astrology, as well as I do something called the monthly game plan, where I go in detail and very specific about everything that's going on in the month and make sure you guys are ready for it, as well as monthly rising sign horoscopes so you know exactly how the month ahead is going to be affecting you. But in my lectures, I've talked a lot about Jupiter and Mercury, and something the ancient astrologer Pretorius brings up is how Jupiter and Mercury are in detriment in each other's zodiac signs. You might have heard this concept of, oh, Mercury's in detriment or Jupiter's in detriment. And the reason being is Mercury is all about rational, logical thought, and Jupiter is all about abundance. And something Pretorius brings up is how abundance is opposed to logic. And this is something really important to understand because Jupiter doesn't operate on a plane of, oh, it has to make sense or you have to be able to know about it. It's about faith. It's about believing in more. And that's how you get lucky. Jupiter rules things like gratitude and being grateful. And when you are grateful, you realize how much you really have. And when you live in gratitude, it's hard to think that you don't have enough because when you're grateful for every little thing you have, you realize how much you really have and that truly the world is abundant. So Jupiter is an extremely positive planet. It's a really, really good planet. And I want to talk about why Jupiter going into Cancer this time around is actually really important. And I say this time around because Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the zodiac. So the last time Jupiter was in Cancer was between summer of 2013 and summer of 2014. And the time before that was the summer of 2001 into the summer of 2002. So as I go deeper in this video and you get to the zodiac portion of this video, I want you to think about that summer of 2001 into 2002 and that summer of 2013 into 2014 and what was going on in your life at that time in that area that Cancer is at and were things better, were things worse, what was going on, because this theme is going to repeat this year with Jupiter in Cancer. But like I said, this Jupiter in Cancer transit is actually really special for two reasons. Number one, Jupiter has been in Gemini for the past year. And if you watched my Jupiter in Gemini video, I talked a lot about how Jupiter is going to be in detriment. And recently I've been having a lot more people watch that video so they can recap their year and they're like, oh my God, you were so right about this. And what I talk about in that video is Jupiter's about, again, abundance and faith and hope, but it was in the zodiac sign of Gemini. Gemini, which is ruled over by Mercury, is all about information, logical, it's rational, it's thinking about things. And so Jupiter, which is all about abundance and faith and hope, can't do its job when it's in a zodiac sign that's all about thinking. When you're trying to rationalize your beliefs, when you're trying to live in abundance, but you're trying to do it through a form of calculation, you can't do those things. And so this past year, Jupiter, the greater benefic, the planet about abundance and luckiness and hope, has been in detriment. It hasn't been working all that well. But Jupiter is entering Cancer where it is exalted. In astrology, there's a concept called dignity, which essentially means certain planets prefer to be in certain zodiac signs. Jupiter rules over the sign of Sagittarius and Pisces. So Jupiter prefers to be in these zodiac signs, but it rules over these zodiac signs. So it's responsible for it. Think of Jupiter in something like Sagittarius or Pisces, like you are throwing a party at your house. You're in control of the party. You can have as much fun as you want to. You can do whatever you want, but you are responsible for what happens at your house if things go wrong. That's the way Jupiter rules over Sagittarius and Pisces. But exaltation is like if your best friend or your cousin threw a party, where it's essentially you could still do whatever you want. You're still kind of the king of the castle, but it's not your responsibility. In Cancer, Jupiter has more than enough access to the resources and the tools that it needs to do its job. And so Jupiter is going from literally one of its worst signs to be in to now being in its best sign it could be in. You can argue that a planet in its exalted sign is better off than a planet in its domicile. So again, Jupiter being about abundance and hope and faith, it's going from losing faith and not having abundance and questioning all these things to just being able to live in it. It's like having a little bit extra Jupiter. And so let's talk a little bit about what Cancer rules over. Now, Cancer is all about nurturing and protecting. If you think about Cancer season, which is the summer solstice when the sun is the highest, it's very warm outside. And especially if you live somewhere in the desert or really just anywhere in the USA, during the summer, when there's so much heat, we get this moisture in the air and we get these beautiful summer storms that happen. And something Ptolemy talks a lot about is how heat and moisture bear life. And Cancer is one of the hottest and wettest signs that you can get. And this concept of life and death and hot and cold and dry and moist in astrology is really, really important in terms of understanding that framework, which again is what I explain and teach over my courses on my website. But if you think about Jupiter, which is also a life bringer, which is also about abundance, and it's in the zodiac sign that is all about nurturing and taking care of and having plenty of life, it's going to essentially be really good. And I think at the end of the day, what you really just need to know is that the planet of good things is in its favorite sign where it could do all the things that it needs to do, which is, again, create new things in your life. But like I said before, there's two reasons why this Jupiter in Cancer transit is really special. Number one, Jupiter just left its detriment sign for the past year. So think of it in contrast. Think about the worst year of your life, and then next year, you have the best year of your life. Versus if it's like a regular year and a regular year, you're not going to see that much difference. But when you go from the worst year of your life to the best year of your life, you really see that contrast. And that's what a lot of this is. But the second thing that makes this Jupiter in Cancer transit really important is the Mars retrograde that we had between October of 2024 to about April of 2025. Why am I bringing up a Mars retrograde in a Jupiter video? Well, you see, Mars is fallen in Cancer. And just like there's a concept of domicile and exaltation, domicile is when a planet rules over a zodiac sign. Exaltation is when a planet does really well in a zodiac sign. Detriment is when a planet is away from home, and fallen is like even worse. Mars is fallen in Cancer, and between September of 2024 to November of 2024, and then back into about January of 2025 into April of 2025, Mars was in Cancer. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your birth chart and where Cancer is at in your birth chart. And I want you to think about September, October into November, December, January, February, March, April, and what was bad in that area. Because Mars was in Cancer and it was retrograding Cancer and it was really gnarly. Yes, Mars was also retrograde in Leo. Mars actually stationed retrograde at 6 degrees Leo and then moved backwards into Cancer. But that Mars retrograde took that area that Cancer rules in our lives and made it really problematic and made it really bad. And I find it so serendipitous that we just got done with this Mars retrograde phase, right? We had months and months with Mars in Cancer, and that's as bad as it gets, right? Mars has fallen in Cancer. It's not good. And then just a few months later, Jupiter enters that area. So why this is special is whatever area of your life really sucked between September, October, November, December, January, February, March, whatever area of your life sucked during that time is about to get really, really good. It's literally going to be opposite effect. And in my opinion, that's what makes this Jupiter and Cancer transit so special. And that also continues into 2026, because in 2026, Jupiter will leave Cancer and it will enter Leo, and it will still occupy that space in the sky that Mars retrograded in. So again, really think about the last half of 2024 and the beginning half of 2025 and what was really tumultuous, what does Cancer and Leo rule in your birth chart? What really sucked? Because Jupiter's going to come in and fix everything. So it's like right when you lost hope, right when you were at the bottom, Jupiter comes in and saves the day, and you're going to be blessed. And if you know me, you know I'm not always this super, like positive or just like looking at everything in this super great way all the time. And that's for a good reason. Like astrology can teach us how to be better people and how to overcome obstacles. And I think that's what it's a really good tool for. But this transit is literally one of the best transits that you can get. And I think it's going to make this next 12 months incredibly special. And especially in contrast to Jupiter being in detriment over the last 12 months, and then also Mars retrograding in that area to now Jupiter exalted and fixing that problem that started over the past like 7-8 months. Something I like to think about with Jupiter and Cancers, I've always called it the grandma placement. If you think about when you're a parent, you're supposed to discipline your kids and, actually be a parent, but it's your grandparents that end up always spoiling your kids. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but a lot of people know what I'm talking about, where grandparents typically end up spoiling their grandkids way more than they ever did with their own children. And that's what Jupiter in Cancer reminds me of. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take care of you. I'm just going to do this. You're going to be taken care of in this way. Because again, Cancer is about being nurtured. It's about being protected. And the zodiac sign of Cancer is ruled over by the moon, and the moon rules the internal parts of us. The moon is a luminary, and it's about highlighting our internal needs. It's about our emotions. It's about our feelings. And Jupiter is about to come in there and make us feel really good. When I still had grandparents, they're all fucking dead now, but when I had grandparents, I had a grandma, she smothered butter in all of her mashed potatoes, and it was literally the best thing ever because my mom could not cook mashed potatoes to save her life. And that's what this reminds me of, is just like all of the fats, all of the butter in the mashed potatoes, and it's going to taste very delicious. So now that we've talked about a lot of the basics of Jupiter and Cancer, I'm going to be making more videos about Jupiter and Cancer so you guys can understand it in depth. But now let's go ahead and start talking about how it's going to be affecting your rising sign. For the Aries risings, Jupiter is going to be entering your 4th house of home and family and living situation. And you guys probably dealt with some like negative and tumultuous energy in that area for you on the last half of 2024 and the beginning part of 2025. And that's now pretty much over. Jupiter is going to be about expanding your home and your living situation. So whether that's buying a home, just having a better home life in general, expanding your family in some sort of a way, there's just a lot of good growth and opportunities and love and abundance related to your home and living situation. More importantly, Jupiter rules over number 1, your 12th house. And your 12th house is all about isolation, alienation, the subconscious, fears, phobias, and self-sabotage. And that all sounds really bad, but in my client work, what I have seen when your 12th ruler is going through the 4th and it has any sort of dignity, this is like being able to carve out more privacy, being able to feel more at home, being able to isolate yourself more at home, and like in like a positive way, not because like you're running away from the world, but feeling more at home and like you can have your own privacy, like you can have your own like sacred space. Jupiter also rules over your 9th house of spirituality, religion, far distance travel, higher education, publishing, broadcasting, things like social media. And that planet is being exalted in your 4th house, where a lot of this is like maybe even learning a lot about like your family history, your lineage, maybe moving to a different country, going to school in a different country, one of those topics. But the idea here is that Jupiter rules over like this very meta part of your chart, and it's going to be doing really well in your 4th house. So like whether that's you want to learn more at home, you want to expand your home, expand your family, have more faith there, all of the good energy is coming from your home, your family, and even your parents too. Now, on the flip side, Jupiter rules both life and death. And something to understand is like this could maybe bring up a death in the family. I'm not too positive. I'm not too like confident in saying that. But what I mean by that is typically when Jupiter goes into a house, since Jupiter is about faith and Jupiter is about belief, there's almost like a crisis in faith or a crisis in belief at first. And it's through that Jupiter transit, you end up learning more about that and you end up gaining a lot more faith. And that storyline is happening related to your living situation and your parents. My only thing against that is, well, Jupiter is exalted. So like, I don't necessarily think a lot of this is all that bad in terms of like, oh, something bad's going to happen. And then you learn how to make it good. It's like, I think it's just going to be mostly good in general. For the Taurus risings, Jupiter is entering your 3rd house of short distance travel, communication, siblings, neighbors, a lot of the 3rd house is kind of like running errands. How do you manage your time? The 3rd house is like the junk drawer of the chart. It rules a lot of things that most people don't really necessarily pay attention to all the time. So this is definitely going to be a good year for siblings, for your neighborhood. This could involve moving depending on your chart, but I'm not too confident in that. but learning more about communicating, buying a new car. The third house is short distance travel too. So buying a new car, doing a lot of traveling that is much more short distance. If you're in America, that'd be more of like going state to state rather than doing any like far distance traveling. And the third house being about like applying knowledge that you have is just kind of like, I feel like there's a part of this year that feels like you are just starting to finally get it. Like, oh, I can take this opportunity and I can do this thing because I know how to do this, or I have this skill. So there's a lot of opportunities that are just kind of around you in general. And I think there's going to be a lot about communicating more and expressing more to the people that are around you, how grateful for them that you are, being able to just communicate and express gratitude and faith and hope and putting that into other people. Also, Jupiter rules Pisces, which rules over your 11th house of friends and community and networks. And what's weird is the 11th house rules like networks and community, right? Which is like more global, but the third house is people that are very close to you. And so your 11th ruler of friends being exalted in the third house of like community is like maybe spending more time with your friends or having an abundance of friends. Or again, Saturn is going into your 12th house. So that's kind of a whole different story related to friends. But maybe this is spending more time with your siblings or your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your family, things along those lines, like spending more time with them instead of friends. The only other thing is Jupiter does rule your 8th house, which rules death, debt, and inheritance. It rules other people's money and shared resources. And that's going to be exalted in your 3rd house. So like a very niche example I can think of is like, oh, your neighborhood pools together a bunch of money to improve the community. There's building community resources to, help your neighbors or to help your family. The only other thing I'll bring up is when Jupiter enters a new zodiac sign, oftentimes you see like a crisis that people have. And because Jupiter is about like faith and belief and hope, it often takes like something bad to happen for people to unlock a new level of faith and hope. And because Jupiter rules your 8th house of death and it's going into your 3rd house of like siblings and aunts, uncles, cousins, and neighbors, there could possibly be a death in this area. Now, again, that's going to be super specific to every individual watching this. I'm not saying that every single Taurus rising is going to be dealing with this. However, Jupiter does rule your 8th house of death, and it is going to be going through your 3rd house of people in your life. So that's something to understand. And I think also too, Jupiter in Cancer might be a great opportunity to, again, express more love and hang out more with those people. But again, the 8th house also rules shared resources and debt. And so this could be, again, pulling resources together for some opportunity with those people, or again, even just going in debt to buy a new car. That could also be what your 8th ruler being exalted in the 3rd is. For the Gemini risings, boy, are you guys having a great year, because Jupiter is entering your 2nd house of money, finances, and resources. Don't know what else to tell you besides money's going to be pretty good. Being able to just like make enough money, spend enough money, take care of needs, and take care of other people too related to money. What's also important too is Jupiter rules your 10th house of career and reputation and legacy. Saturn has been transiting your 10th house for quite some time. So you've had a lot more maturity, a lot more responsibility, and a lot more limitations and restrictions related to career for like the past few years. But now the planet that rules that is going into your 2nd house of money, where it's going to be exalted. Whether I think there's going to be some sort of a job change, but you're going to be starting to make more money at this point. The only other thing that I will say is Jupiter, and I'm saying this for every zodiac sign, Jupiter, because it rules faith and belief and hope, can sometimes, when it moves into new zodiac sign, it can sometimes create like a crisis where you kind of freak out and you have to be a little bit more faithful and you have to do a little bit more trusting in order for things to get good. And that's happening with your 2nd house of money. So there could be a money issue, but the thing is, it's Jupiter in Cancer. It's not going to be that bad. This is way more good than it is bad in any sort of way. Jupiter also rules over your 7th house of relationships. And so the planet that rules your 7th house of relationships is going to be exalted, right? So like relationships will do much, much better, probably way better than they have in the past year. But your 7th ruler of relationships is exalted in the 2nd house of money. So that's either, your partner's helping you make more money, your partner's making more money in general, or you're making a lot more money. And so that is making the quality of your relationships a lot better. I would say arguably Gemini's top 3 zodiac signs, or at least top 3 rising signs that are getting the most out of Jupiter in Cancer. It's a really good time to make money. The biggest thing is fucking save it. Like, don't be stupid about this. You're not going to get this transit again for another 12 years. So make the money, save the money, invest it wisely. Cancer, Jupiter is entering your 1st house of your body, yourself, your image. This is actually kind of a complicated one for the Cancer risings, because on one end, Jupiter expands and it's going to be going through your 1st house of your body. So if you don't want to get fat, or if you don't want to get fatter, this is going to be something that you're going to have to like really emphasize on. Now, Jupiter is about like, again, expansion and abundance, and it's exalted in your first house. So there's a part of this that's like, well, maybe there's certain Cancer risings out there that need to gain some weight. Well, this is going to be great for that. Like if you're someone who's underweight. The other part of this is there is this sort of learning and faith and hope related to your body. And why this is weird is because Jupiter also rules your sixth house of ill health. Sagittarius, sixth house, Jupiter rules over Sagittarius. The sixth house rules ill health, work, labor, routines, and pets. And when the planet of ill health is exalted in your first house, on one literal way, it's like, well, your sixth house ruler's in your first house. So this would be a time of bad health, but it's Jupiter and it's exalted. So it's like, this should be on paper a really good year with health. I think the only part of it is like, don't be too gluttonous. Don't expand your body too much. Use this as more of like building muscle, or again, take like re-nourishing your body in some sort of a way. That's a big thing about looking at it. But overall, you're going to just be feeling a lot more optimistic, a lot more hopeful, a lot more grateful, a lot more faithful too. Feeling like you can be much more of a giver. And Jupiter's about wisdom too. So there's some part of this year that's about like gaining a lot more wisdom about yourself and just in general. But Jupiter also rules your ninth house of spirituality, religion, far distance travel, higher education, and publishing and broadcasting. And with the planet that rules like religion and faith being, Jupiter, which also rules religion and faith in your first house, there's like a really interesting situation where, over the past 3 years, Saturn's been through your ninth house. So maybe you've had some limitations or restrictions or more responsibility related to religion and faith and higher education and far distance travel, where that kind of goes away. And now it's much more about like feeling more hopeful, feeling more grateful, feeling more wise and understanding yourself. And again, whatever your faith is, whatever your belief is, feeling more confident in that. But that's coming through a space of like learning more about yourself. And I think personally getting more invested into your body, like being more in your body, understanding what that's saying. Overall, I think this is going to be a great year for you guys, or at least a great time. There's a lot of opportunities, just feeling a lot more hopeful, a lot more lucky. Again, this is America though. This is America. A lot of you are obese. Try not to gain any more weight than you need to. For the Leo risings, Jupiter's entering your 12th house, which is a very interesting place for this to happen, because Jupiter's, again, faith and hope and belief, and it's exalted. So these things are like, there's like a lot about being taken care of and learning more about nurturing and feeling replenished. But the 12th house rules isolation, alienation, the subconscious, fears, phobias, hidden enemies, and self-sabotage. And Jupiter going through your 12th house is going to be a lot about like learning and gaining a lot more wisdom over where do you self-sabotage? Where do you retreat? Where do you hide away? Jupiter in Cancer is giving you an opportunity to look at the more nasty parts of your life and kind of take care of this in a very like somber, nice way rather than a harsh way. But what's also interesting too, and this is kind of true for all of the fire signs, but more for the Leo risings, it's complicated because Jupiter rules over your 8th house of shared resources, death, debt, inheritance, other people's money. And Saturn's been in your 8th house for a couple of years and just left your 8th house. So Saturn being about responsibility and like maturity, there's been a lot of limitations and restrictions and heavy weight related to other people's resources, death, debt, and inheritance. And so that's been hard. But then the planet that rules that is now going to be exalted in your 12th house. And when your 8th ruler's in the 12th, both of these houses are hidden houses. So they're not necessarily obvious to you all the time. They're your, like if you're driving a car, the 8th house and the 12th house are like your blind spots. And so your 8th ruler being exalted in the 12th, it almost kind of reminds me of like you forgetting about a stock that you bought and it's doing super well. And you don't even know about it for a year from now when Jupiter leaves Cancer. You're like, oh shit, I totally forgot about that. I think another thing though is the 8th house is like fears and secrets, and it's going in your 12th house. And there's this opportunity for you to like look a little bit more in depth about like yourself, what you're afraid of, things that you aren't necessarily aware of that might scare you, being able to say like, okay, why am I scared about this? Now, Jupiter in Cancer in your 12th might be more prone to doing more self-sabotage, feeling like you have to withdraw and isolate and hide away. And I think that's probably appropriate for a lot of you, like being more withdrawn, being more isolated, because there's a lot of healing and a lot of wisdom in that area. But the other thing is Jupiter rules your 5th house. And the 5th house is about love, romance, sex, pleasure, art, music, recreation, and children. And your 5th ruler is exalted, right? So that's good, but it's in the 12th house, where I feel like there's a lot about this year that's about uncovering things that you need in the space around love and relationships and sex, and even just putting yourself out there in terms of creating things. Like, do you have any sort of hobbies? Do you have any interests? And a lot of this year is kind of, I think, going into your subconscious and being like, what do I actually need? Not want, but what do you actually need to feel loved, to feel taken care of? And so this is a really weird year for the Leo risings. I think it's going to get a little bit more complicated when you are trying to understand how you self-sabotage and looking into your subconscious, because those things are difficult. But I wouldn't necessarily characterize this as bad. It's just a weird year for you guys in particular. For the Virgo risings, Jupiter is entering your 11th house of friends, community, and networks. And I think this is really good. You might have had some problems with friends over the last half of 2024 and the first half of 2025, where you might have cut some friends out. You might have had some drama with friends. Jupiter is going into your 11th house, where it's about expanding friendships, expanding social circles, taking care of your friends taking care of you. There's a lot of really good energy going on with the people that you're around. You're probably going to meet a new group of friends. You're going to be going out more, and you should if you're not, by the way. And there's a lot, because there's just a lot of like being taken care of and having a lot of abundance, and again, learning a lot more from friends and having like a better quality of friendships as well. Jupiter also rules your 7th house of relationships. And this is one-on-one relationships. So, a spouse, a partner, any individual, and your 7th house ruler being in the 11th just kind of speaks a little bit more to being more social. Like you and your, if you are married, you guys both being more social, or if you're dating someone, being more social, introducing them to the friend group, or even again, finding a new relationship from a friend group. Now, Jupiter also rules your 4th house of home and family and living situation. Now, on one end, your 4th ruler is going to be exalted. So like the quality of your living situation will be better, but your 4th ruler will be in the 11th house of friends. So there's this aspect of like, I've seen this look a lot of different ways of like, a friend living with you living with a friend, being able to couch surf or not pay rent, or a friend is like, hey, I've got a place for you to stay in this area. Come stay with me, or something like that. There's a lot of like home and living situation stuff connected with friends. That's really, really good. The only other thing I'll say is your 4th ruler, the Cancer is the 8th from the 4th. And so this can bring up some sort of like death topics or shared resource topics that might feel a little unfamiliar or feel a little strange and weird. I don't think this is a bad thing whatsoever. When Jupiter moves into a new zodiac sign, oftentimes it could present crises that make you question your faith. And that's Jupiter's about faith and about belief and hope. And so you kind of have to like rely on that in order to get through certain times. And Jupiter being in your 11th house of friends is just, there's a really unique look at what your friendships mean to you. Do you lose some friends but gain more along the way? What do you learn about the people that you're surrounding yourself with? But at the end of the day, I think this is a great year for both relationships, living situation, because of the friends that you have, or the friends, I should say, that you're about to make. For the Libra risings, Jupiter is entering your 10th house of career. You and Gemini risings are pretty much having the best year this year. The 10th house is all about career, reputation, legacy. Mars has been retrograding in your 10th house on the last half of 2024 and the first half of 2025. So the last half of 2024 might have been a lot of problems with work and drama and not making enough money. Jupiter's going into your 10th house, and it's going to be expanding your 10th house of career. So again, like more opportunities, more pay, more advancements in your work, getting a better job. That's the name of the game this year. Like, don't waste this year. Try to expand your work and your career as much as humanly possible, because again, you're not going to get this transit for another 12 years. So use it while you can. Jupiter also rules over your 6th house, which rules work and labor. That's really important because the 10th house is like the title that you wear, and the 6th house is the work that goes into that job. And your 6th house ruler of like the quality of the labor will be exalted in the 10th house of career. It's like the good paying job that's very easy to do, and that it not only is it easy to do, you're the best at doing that easy thing. So it just all ends up working out. There's going to be a lot of work opportunities. Do not say no to work this year. There's so much growth, and there's so much about being taken care of with work this year that's very, very excellent. Jupiter also rules your 3rd house, and the 3rd house is about siblings, neighbors, short distance travel, aunts, uncles, cousins, communication, and just applying knowledge that you have. And the 3rd house is, I always talk about it as like the junk drawer of the chart. It just rules so many fucking things. But your 3rd ruler, if it's about applying knowledge that you have and just how do you spend your free time, and the people that are closest to you, again, that's like people physically close to you. That's why it rules things like neighbors and siblings. It's exalted in the 10th house of career. So there's more traveling, or at least more short distance traveling related to career. There's more figuring out knowing how to apply shit and being able to squeeze the most out of that to get the most juice in your work and your career. But long story short, this is mostly about work and career for you guys. And a lot of it's about being taken care of, having a lot of great opportunities. For the Scorpio risings, Jupiter is entering your 9th house of spirituality, religion, far distance travel, higher education, publishing, broadcasting, social media, faith, religion. And so Jupiter is going into your 9th house, and it's going to be expanding this area where I would argue this is a very religious year for you. really think about, the last half of 2024 and the first half of 2025. And were you like, when Mars was retrograding in your ninth house, I like to talk about it as like shaking your fist at God and being upset about things that are going on and, feeling a very lack of like a spiritual connection. And that changes this year. Like there's a lot more abundance when it comes to your belief system. Jupiter's about knowledge and wisdom. So you might be learning more. The ninth house is about far distance travel. So like going to different countries, being taken care of in a weird way. Now, what's interesting is Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius rules your second house of money and finances and resources. So the planet that rules money and finances and resources is going to be exalted in your ninth house of traveling, religion, beliefs, publishing, broadcasting, social media. So there's a lot more money opportunities for you to make from traveling, from being a lot more in alignment with like your belief system and feeling more hopeful and faithful in general. So that's terrific. But Jupiter also rules your fifth house of love, romance, sex, pleasure, art, music, recreation, children. So there's this very creative and fun, the planet that rules fun and creativity and all this fun area in your chart is going to be exalted in your ninth house of like traveling and learning and teaching and wisdom. So it's kind of a weird year for you guys in terms of like, well, Jupiter's going through your ninth. It's very religious. It's very hopeful. It's very like getting into your spiritual practice, but it rules your second house of money and your fifth house of fun. So it's like fucking like, okay, you get to make money doing these things and you get to have a lot of fun doing these things, being a little bit more tapped in to your spiritual side, being a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more grateful, and you're just going to be taken care of in a really cool way. So it's really weird because it's kind of like, it's not necessarily Jupiter going through your ninth. It's the fact that your second ruler and your fifth ruler is exalted in your ninth. That's what makes this year cool for you guys. For the Sagittarius risings, Jupiter is entering your eighth house. The eighth house rules death, inheritance, other people's money, and shared resources. I'm a Sag rising, so I could sit here and say, when Mars was retrograding in Cancer, oh my God, problems with other people's money, problems with debt, problems with inheritance, death all around you, feeling very insecure. Jupiter is going to be expanding your eighth house of inheritance, of death, of other people's money. And so there's a lot of opportunities here. And now what's weird is Jupiter rules your first house of your body, and it's going to be in the eighth house of death. I don't necessarily think you guys are going to die, but try to be a little bit more careful than not, if that makes sense. But there's something about the eighth house, which the eighth house is about like the occult and secrets and other people's business, and your ascendant ruler of your body is being there. So there's a lot of you, like whatever Jupiter is doing is kind of essentially telling like your story in a lot of ways. And so Jupiter going through your eighth is going to be kind of like learning a lot about, secrets and things in life that you weren't aware of. That's really important about the eighth house, having more opportunities with other people's resources. If you have any debt, getting out of debt. If you have any like life insurance policies, make those if you haven't already. A lot of it is just kind of a lot of opportunities and good luck from other people's resources. So if someone wants to support you, if your life is connected to other people's resources in any way, which it is to some degree, there's a lot of opportunities and abundance there for you. But the other part of it is Jupiter does rule your fourth house of home and family and living situation and parents. And because your fourth ruler is transiting the eighth, this is something I see that's really common when you see a family member pass away. Now, I don't necessarily think this is going to be something that you guys necessarily go through exactly, but there's eclipses in your fourth house. Your fourth ruler is going to transit the eighth. Saturn goes back in your fourth at the end of the year. There is a really high possibility of there being some sort of a death or there's being some sort of an ending when it comes to family topics. So that's something to look out for. But it is your fourth ruler exalted in the eighth, meaning there could be this situation in which you, like, for example, if your fourth ruler is about home and family and it's exalted in the eighth, like being able to be qualified for a lot more money for buying a house. This would be an excellent year to buy a house. It's like if the eighth house is like debt and other people's money, but Jupiter's there, it's like really excellent terms and conditions for the debt. Like, you're able to get a house at a discount and you're able to get a really great interest rate and it's exactly the way that you want it. That's a lot of what this year is. It's Jupiter in the eighth. It's kind of weird when your ascendant ruler is transiting the eighth house for a year. So just know that you're going to be kind of going through secrets and occult and learning a lot more about yourself than maybe you have in a long time, because this is a hidden area of your chart. But there's a lot of like healing and blessing and just good things happening from it, even though there are going to be some issues with family and living. I want to say, well, it could be living situation stuff, but like family stuff and parent stuff will be really important too. For the Capricorn risings, Jupiter is going into your seventh house of relationships, and Jupiter is all about expanding, hope, and abundance. Seventh house of relationships. If you're not in one yet, there's a really good chance that you're going to get one. If you are in one, well, your partner, your spouse, they're going to be doing really, really good this year. And I'm assuming from the last half of 2024 to the first half of 2025, there was a lot of issues in relationships, and Jupiter's gonna be coming through and like healing a lot of that and learning more about relationships, learning more about like how can you be more grateful, how can you be more hopeful, how can you have more faith, how can you enjoy relationships more. Jupiter also rules though your 12th house, and the 12th house is hidden enemies, self-sabotage, isolation, alienation, and repressed parts of yourself, like the subconscious. And when the planet that rules your 12th house of like the subconscious and fears and phobias and self-sabotage is in your 7th house of relationships, you might see yourself sabotaging relationships a little bit more. But this is different. It's like Jupiter exalted in Cancer, where I almost wonder if there's going to be somewhat of an impulse to maybe do some sabotaging behaviors. However, the space that you have created with relationships allows for an opportunity for that not to be, destructive. There's a sense of healing, or feeling like you can share your secrets with someone, or feeling like you actually feel a little bit of safety with someone. That might scare you at first, but I would argue that your 12th ruler being exalted in the 7th is like, this is someone that you can like share a lot of things with. Now, Jupiter also rules your 3rd house of short distance travel, communication, siblings, neighbors. And so like your 3rd ruler about people that are close to you, going into your 7th house of relationships is really interesting. Like there seems to be one individual relationship from either your neighborhood or your day-to-day errands, or like being a little bit closer to one of your siblings this year that's on the menu. But I think at the end of the day, this year is just mostly really good with relationships and learning a lot more, having a lot more faith, having a lot more wisdom, and wisdom comes from effort with relationships this year. For the Aquarius risings, Jupiter is entering your 6th house of work, ill health, day-to-day activities, habits, and pets. And also rules like coworkers and employees and stuff like that. And so Jupiter going into your 6th is going to be expanding your workload. Now it's Jupiter exalted in Cancer. It's like, it's not just shitty work. It's the work that you want to do. It's the work that you want to take care of. So there's a lot of opportunities for work for you guys this year. Gaining pets, maybe if you wanted to get a pet, this would be a great time to get a pet, especially if you had some pet issues over the past few months. Jupiter, though, is going into your 6th house, which rules ill health. Now, what's interesting to me about ill health is, what problems have you had with health? And Jupiter in Cancer is like being healed in a way that maybe you didn't understand or see before. I think this will be a really, really good time for health, getting ahead of the game on health, taking care of yourself in a really good way. Jupiter rules over your 2nd house of money as well, because Jupiter rules Pisces, and Pisces is your 2nd house. And your 2nd ruler of money is exalted in your 6th house of work. So again, not only are you expanding your work and the amount of work that you do, but the money that you're making from it is really, really excellent. So money's going to be great this year. And Jupiter rules over your 11th house of friends and community and networks. And so there's a part of this year that's about gaining friends and looking at your friends and looking at your community. And are they now your employees? Are you working with your friends? Can you get the same job as your friends? There's a part of this year where like the quality of your relationships, your friendships are exalted because of work. So again, maybe it's being able to just collaborate more with people, or work more closely with your friends, or bring on more employees from your networks that you know, and they're like good employees. At the end of the day, it's a really good year for work, and especially for money for the Aquarius risings. And for the Pisces risings, Jupiter is going into your 5th house of love, romance, sex, pleasure, art, music, recreation, and children. So where else would you want it? Like, you know what I mean? The 5th house is all about fun things. It's all about being creative. It's all about expanding yourself. The 1st house and the 5th house and the 9th house are these very personal houses, where the 1st house is like your identity, and the 5th house is like what you create. That's why it rules things like children. That's why it rules things like, again, like art and music. So there's a big expansion in this area. There's a lot of opportunities in this area, whether that's you want to have a kid, whether that's you want to do more art, whether that's you want to do more music. You're going to be much more focused on your creative life this year. Now, what's also really cool is not only is your ascendant ruler, which the ascendant rules your body and your image in the 5th house, where you are literally just being more creative, having more fun, getting more into your hobbies in a way that like is really satiating you and nurturing you, like in a way that you haven't in a long time, like especially between the 2nd half of 2024 and the 1st half of 2025, where that might have been a very problematic area. You're just going to be having a lot more fun and opportunities and growth there. But Jupiter also rules your 10th house of career and reputation and legacy. And so your 10th ruler of career being exalted in the 5th house of creativity and art is like, like, especially if you're like an artist or you're someone that works in the creative field, there's so many opportunities to be more creative and to have more fun. The 5th house is all about fun with your work. And it's like the best opportunities, the best kind of work, doing the thing that you want to do. Like, I really want you guys to just focus on having fun
and doing the things that you want to. And like a lot of it's about sex, a lot of it's about pleasure, a lot of it's about focusing on kids, a lot of it's about just expanding this area and learning about this area and nurturing and taking care of yourself in a way that in that area that you haven't in a while. And what's really cool is that it's Jupiter ruling your ascendant. So whatever you're ruled by Jupiter. So whatever Jupiter is doing is kind of what you're doing in general, but it's your career too. Like the Sagittarius rules your 10th house. So whatever Jupiter is doing also kind of affects your career. So like your work and you, the planet that rules both your work and you, is focused on the fun parts of life. So like, I think this is a very fun and excellent year for the Pisces risings, just to have fun and be creative. And if you made it this far, congratulations. I don't have anything for you for making it this far, but thank you guys so much for watching this video, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Again, make sure you subscribe to keep up to date. I'm going to have more Jupiter and Cancer videos. We have a Uranus and Gemini video coming out. We already have the Saturn and Aries video out. There's so much astrology to talk about as time goes on, and I want to make sure you guys are here for it. So with that being said, I'll be seeing you next time.